Mr. McCaul is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Schiffman, you said the drug cartels are a threat to the government of Mexico. I agree with you. Dr. Bunker, you said that you made a very bold statement that the drug cartels are the #1 greatest threat to the security of the United States, surpassing al-Qaeda. I happen to agree with you as well on that. Political assassinations, extortion, kidnappings, terrorizing the Mexican people. Recently, President Calderon, after the casino, 50 killed in the casino, said, "We are facing true terrorists who have surpassed not only the limits of the law, but basic common sense and respect for life." And I'd like to read from you out of the United States Code, out of federal law, Black Law's definition of terrorism. It's an act of terrorism means an activity that involves a violent act or an act dangerous to human life that is a violation of the criminal laws of the United States or of any state, or that would be a criminal violation if committed within the jurisdiction of the United States or of any state. This is where it's important. And it appears to be intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population to influence the policy of a government by intimidation or coercion, or to affect the conduct of a government by assassination or kidnapping. Would all of you agree that the drug cartels fall squarely within this definition of terrorists? Dr. Schiffman?
Sir, thank you, and thank you for all of your leadership on this issue through the years. Definition of terrorism is an act, often including civilians, for some sort of political goal. Insurgents do take part in terrorist acts, and absolutely it fits the definition.
Thank you. Dr. Seeley?
I think it's a slippery slope. I mean, I'm not sure that these are organizations involved in political acts. I think this is primarily about the money, as Dr. Schiffman's paper says, actually. And this is primarily about the money. I think we get into a slippery slope when we start to confuse them with terrorists. There certainly are acts that are very similar, like the casino fire, to what terrorists do. But there are also acts in this country that are truly terrible that we wouldn't necessarily qualify as terrorism, right?
I think the tactics of decapitating people and burning people alive and shooting school buses is certainly
it's terrible, and at the same time, it's a slippery slope. I mean, this is not a clear political message or clear political intent in most cases.
Dr. Bunker?
They engage in terrorist acts, they engage in insurgents acts. You're also getting accidental insurgents where they're taking over political control in a city just because they've basically gotten to the point where no one's watching what they're doing, so now we have to run this place. The other issue too is, I'll just let it go.
And Dr. Starr?
I'm going to obfuscate a little bit. I think it's much more important to understand what's happening in Mexico than to label it. Because when we label it, we have the tendency of comparing it with other things that have similar labels. My concern about calling what's going on in Mexico either terrorism as an insurgency or something like that is then we equate Mexico with something like Afghanistan or Pakistan, and they are not equal in any way, shape, or form. In Afghanistan, in Pakistan, you have terrorists, you have insurgents whose objective it is to overthrow the sitting government. That is not what is the objective of organized crime syndicates in Mexico. They're organized crime. They want to make money.
Well, I agree with President Calderon. He called them terrorists. And Dr. Bunker, if it's the #1 greatest threat to our national security, I introduced a bill to designate them as foreign terrorist organizations, which will give us, as a federal prosecutor, it gives us greater tools to go after them, including freezing these bank assets, which, Dr. Seeley, I thought you gave excellent testimony about the role of the banks in the laundering of money. How complicit are the banks in Mexico with the drug cartels?
You know, I don't think we know that answer, actually. I mean, I think it's something we need to know, and it's something we need to put resources into. We do put resources in our Treasury Department. It's very good at this, into figuring out, and Mexico needs to put some more resources into this as well. I mean, we're both falling down on the job on this.
I got limited time, but Mr. Chairman, I think the idea of Treasury doing an audit would be certainly helpful to see how complicit they are, because they are making money off this whole thing. I mean, there's no question in my mind. Last point, I got to go down with the chairman to Colombia. Plan Colombia Joint Intelligence Military Operation worked very effectively over time. We need something in the post-Merida, as we talk about post-Merida, we need something like that. I think in Mexico, it is a regional concern. Guatemala, as we were down there, 25 farmers were decapitated by the Zetas. And that is truly a failed state in Guatemala. And The one point takeaway I got from that trip, is meeting with President Santos. Their Colombian Special Forces are very well trained. He was willing to help Mexico with these special forces. When we met with President Calderon, they are shifting from the national police to take over the military's operation, which I think is a right direction for Mexico, and they have trained a lot of police officers. But in the short term, it seems to me that we ought to be using some of these Colombian special forces to work side by side with the Mexican special forces. They clearly would blend in from a cultural standpoint, language standpoint, far better than, say, the gringo from the United States. And so I hope, when we mentioned that to President Calderon, he had showed interest, and Chairman and I have mentioned this to the Secretary of State as well. And with that, I yield back.